Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of r/ProRevenge, coming at you guys on a brand new microphone. So if things sound a little bit different or a little bit better, that's because the studio got quite the upgrade this morning. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Cop regrets hassling liquor store worker. Trigger warning, sexual assault threat. I have worked quite a few part-time jobs over the years to help with the budget. Some in bigger cities, some in smaller ones. This particular story takes place in a large city where each neighborhood is actually a small town. The city is really a bunch of small towns that grew until they touched. This job was almost 20 years ago, so the dialogue is from memory. One part-time job was evenings or weekends at a liquor store with a drive-through beer/soda/wine lane. We could only sell beer and wine at the drive-through. If a customer wanted liquor or more than a set amount of wine, we had to park and come inside. We could not carry liquor to the car for you either. The state had a lot of nitpicky rules like that, and I had just completed the mandatory training needed to sell alcohol, so the rules were fresh in my mind. The store had been in business for decades, and the manager was the owner's slacker of a son. He was happy to bend or flat out break the laws regulating alcohol sales if it meant money for him. He didn't care if the consequences would be the problem of the person who rang them up. That didn't impact him directly, so it didn't matter. Manager had all sorts of special customers that were supposed to be treated in a certain way that broke regulations. I think the fine for selling liquor out of the drive-thru was more than the store earned in a year. I was a stickler for the rules, so if the manager wanted to break or bend the rules, he could do it. It wasn't like we got any reward for breaking the rules for manager's special customers. They had a hard time finding employees because manager had a reputation in the area and a few people wanted to work for him. So refusing to bend over backwards for manager's special customers was not going to get me fired. No one told me that we had an unusual customer several afternoons during the week and twice on the weekends. This customer was abominable. Rude, stinky, very prejudiced and sexist, and he told the crudest jokes to the female employees and kept trying to insist that we go find a park with him like we were prostitutes. He wasn't just any cop, but the chief of police in a nearby section of the city. Most of the small cities within the larger city had their own police, fire, etc. The first night I saw him, Cece, co-worker and manager's niece, great person, told me to just watch and stay quiet. She sold him 2 cases of beer and he went away. I noticed that his backseat area was filled to the point where you had no place to put your feet. She said to never say anything negative to him and sell him whatever he wanted, no matter if he walked inside or not. She never gave me a clue as to why. A few weeks later, I was working alone on a Sunday at about noon. Business was always slow at this time, and the chief pulls into the drive-thru. "Hi, how are you today? What can I get for you?"
I'm fine, and so are you. I need a bunch of stuff and it needs to go into the trunk.
"Let me grab a pencil and pad so you don't need to repeat it. Just a second." I grab 'em. "What all do you need?" Lists various types of beer, wine, liquor, mixers, and some candy. "Is that all? Am I allowed to sell this to you through the drive-thru, or do you have to come in for the harder stuff?" Chief got out of his car while it was sitting in the drive-thru lane and walked up so close that he loomed over me. "Is that all? Am I allowed to sell this to you through the drive-thru, or do you have to come in for the harder stuff?"
Do you think that I would break the law? That I would ever embarrass myself, my city, or the Marines this way?
What the Marines had to do with anything, I still have no idea. Of course I don't think that. I'm just asking because the state training was unclear about this. I guess it must be fine. After all, you are an officer of the law. Just promise me that if I make a mistake, it will stay between you and me. The training was not unclear, but I felt unsafe around him and didn't want to argue with him or make him angry.
It better be fine. Stop backing up.
He was walking forward toward me, and he was very tall and imposing. Not in a good way.
I need to see if you're recording anything. Put your arms out in front of your body, level with your shoulders. Well, I see you're not wearing a wire or a bra. Maybe I should open your shirt a little and have a little fun, you know what I'm saying? I ought to take you back into that storeroom and have fun with you. No one would ever know.
This guy's a creep. He's a total creep. I don't even like voicing him. I am so sorry. I don't think Father would approve. I'm only here on Sundays at this time because I can go to Mass earlier. If I was single, I would be happy about it, but it would mean breaking one of the 10 commandments. Chief had a rosary hanging from his rearview mirror and Catholic decals on his official vehicle. It was a mostly Catholic area of the city and it wasn't unusual. I was scared of him and just saying anything to try and keep him away from me. I cannot tell you how imposing and awful this man was. I really thought he was going to take me to the back storeroom and assault me.
Well, it might be worth it. Be quick about getting my order and I'll leave you alone this time. You should wear a bra that pushes you up when you know I'm coming by.
I nodded to him and rushed to get what he wanted and to ring him up. I just wanted him gone at that point. I felt very scared but knew we needed the income. I had to figure out a way to not be near the guy again and still keep my job. Cece came in to take over about 2 hours later. She could see that I was a mess and wanted to know what happened. We had no customers, so I told her. Chief came in and wanted a ton of stuff. Cases of beer, lots of wine and hard liquor, mixers, all of it. He insisted on getting it through the drive-thru. I asked if it was okay because the training wasn't clear, and he got out of his car and kept getting too close. Eventually, he told me to stop moving after he backed me into a wall, and he said he had to pat me down to see if I was wearing a wire. Sure felt more like feeling me up. I was in tears and Cece was hugging me to help calm me down. She asked if it was all. He said I should open my shirt for fun, and he should take me into the storeroom and no one would ever know. This is why we give him what he wants and never question him. We don't want him to get out of the car because he tried this with everyone. He doesn't know we have cameras everywhere now. Not sound, but cameras. I'm not sure what we can do about it, but I will think of it. I didn't see Cece for over a week, just how our schedules worked. I was really nervous when I was alone in the store, and I didn't feel unsafe in the store until my experience with the chief of police. I started thinking about how to get rid of him. I did some research and found out that cops in any other jurisdiction could pull him over and/or arrest him. Our neighborhood was announcing the summer festival season with lots of signs about drunk driving. Summer is when every local Catholic church has a big festival with games and rides and whatnot. It's the big fundraiser for the church. Of course, the church festival would not be the same without tons of beer, at least not in this area. I walked over to the police station one day. It wasn't far, and I asked an officer if they would be interested in pulling over a police officer from another district if the officer was clearly drinking. The officer, good cop, wanted to know more, but would definitely be interested in the situation. I work at the drive-thru and liquor store. I have a customer that I'm afraid of and who breaks a number of laws. He's a high-ranking in a different part of the city, but not in our neighborhood. I do not have warrants or a criminal record, and I'm not accusing him to get out of trouble.
Let's go in here and get some coffee and talk about it.
A couple of nights a week, at a certain time, again and again during our slowest periods on Saturdays and Sundays, a high-ranking cop drives through. He insists that he can buy as much of anything that he wants and that he doesn't have to come inside for any reason. The first time I was alone when he came through, I asked if he needed to come inside to get the liquor and amount of wine he wanted. I was not rude or mean. I even said that maybe I didn't understand the training and the loopholes in the laws.
Do you know that just being a cop doesn't mean the laws change for him?
Yes, but that wasn't all he did. When I questioned him, he got out of his car and started backing me up against the wall. He put his hands all over me, supposedly to check for a wire. He then said he should take me into the back room for so-called fun. I'm really afraid he's going to sexually assault me. I can't think of any way to stop it but to get him arrested for the drunk driving he does. I won't make a complaint about the sexual assault. I can't go through with that.
What do you mean by the drunk driving he does? Does he do it a lot?
He is always drinking when he drives through. Usually he has a beer in his hand when we get to him. I've seen him go through up to 3 beers if he has to wait for 1 or 2 other cars before we get to him. He never buys under a case of beer unless he buys whiskey with it. I named the whiskey he usually bought, but I can't remember it now. His backseat area is filled with empties every time we see him. The beer he buys is usually put on the front seat next to him. He opens a can before he leaves, saying he wants to make sure it's good. The only time he has us put all of the beer in the trunk or back seat is if he orders a Coke. Then he orders whiskey and pours some of the Coke out to make room for the whiskey. These are very serious allegations against someone you say is a high-ranking police officer. Are you sure you want me to make them? You may be investigated if this goes to trial or disciplinary proceedings. Are you willing to go through that? I'm afraid of this man, and I cannot go through that. I will testify about his drinking and driving, but I won't say or do anything about the threats. I can't go through that, so I need to stop it before it happens. What are you afraid we'll find if we investigate you? What secrets are you afraid of us finding? I am a 30-something mother of 3 children. I don't have a wild life. I've been happily married for over a decade. I haven't even been in legal trouble. I don't drink, do drugs, go to orgies, or do anything like that. I'm not against social drinking, but I don't drink. I have some debt, but who doesn't? There isn't anything I can think of that you could dig up. Do what you have to do. How can you prove he does what he does? You're not in the car with him. How do you think we can pull him over and arrest him? He has a routine. He pulls in, drinks whatever beer he has with him, orders what he wants, and often asks me to throw away his recently emptied cans. 1 to 3 depending on how long the line is. Why he wants me to go throw those cans away, I have no idea. His backseat's usually filled with empties. We give him whatever he wants because we don't want him to get out of the car, and I am not the only employee who's said awful things to. Once he pays, he turns right out of the parking lot. He then turns left about a mile down. I know because I head the same way a few times. His car says he's in front of Summerview and that's the chief's car. It even has the same name painted on it. I don't know how old the empties in his car are. I do know that I can set his beer cans aside if you need them for fingerprints or anything like that. He's the chief of Summerview? Wait here. I need to go get our chief. Do not go anywhere. I was expecting them to have to get top officers involved. I didn't expect this sort of excitement. About 30 minutes later, the chief of police of my neighborhood came in. I know who he is because he was married to a cousin of mine, but I've never had any real relationship with him. We say hi to each other and made the usual how's your family stuff for a moment. I had a lot of family issues in this area. Way too many some days. I hear you have some information about Chief. Why are you coming to us with this? He makes me feel very safe each time he comes through the drive-thru. He's also drinking every time I see him and comes and leaves with a drink in his hands. I have kids and family in this neighborhood, and he's gonna kill someone. He's been inappropriate with every female employee at the store. I feel threatened that if I don't sell him whatever he wants and whatever amounts to him through the drive-thru, he'll get out of his car and at least threaten to do terrible things to me. I don't want you to do something about his drunk driving so we won't have a reason to come to our drive-thru several times a week. If I look into you, am I gonna find that you have a private relationship with him or other things that would discredit you? Of course not. I wouldn't go near the guy for any reason except I have to be polite at work. Also, I'm married. Happily. From what you said, this looks like an easy case of drunk driving, especially if we catch him with a lot of booze and empties on him. We would need to have someone in store for you to be able to hand the empty cans to if we plan to use that as evidence. How comfortable would you be with an officer inside the store? I'd be fine with this as long as the officer was out of sight and out of uniform. If you're looking for empties, then Wednesday would be good. If you want to catch him in the car with a ton of alcohol, be there on Sunday about noon or Saturday about 2 to 3. I went through security tapes to find out when he usually comes by. You'd probably have to talk to a manager after the fact to get those. Or talk to C. She's usually the one who really runs things. Why are you all so excited over this? His behavior has caught the attention of quite a few people lately. I can't go into it, but we are very interested in him. I also just don't like him. He hit on my wife at functions that we had to attend. I left after writing and signing a statement. I didn't hear anything for several weeks and was getting frustrated. Chief was still coming in, and he was still drinking while driving and kept making awful comments to me. One Sunday, about 2 months after I made my statement, Chief came in. He ordered even more than his usual Sunday amount. Less than a minute after he left our parking lot, I heard sirens. A lot of them. I hoped they were arresting Chief, but I didn't know for sure. The next morning, when I took the kids to school, all the moms were buzzing. Apparently, Chief got himself pulled over for drinking while intoxicated. They found his beer, wine, and hard liquor. They also found drugs. This led them to search his home, where they found unregistered guns and information about other illegal things he was involved with. Corruption, and other things that I don't even think I can say on YouTube. I spoke to the chief of police a week or 2 later, and I would not need to testify. They had plenty of other people there willing to testify. Chief had become a real liability for those who backed him in his town. Many of his close friends ended up testifying against him just to save their own behinds. Chief went to prison, and I'm not sure where or how long, just that it was an ugly situation. Chief's wife also left him. The news made a huge deal of the whole mess. I still am thankful that my name was kept out of it. Yell at me and my staff? Fine. Good luck running the office on your own. I used to work in a small family-owned doctor's office. A couple of years in, they got a legal fight and experienced staff started leaving. Being young and dumb, I wanted to be loyal and ended up managing half of the doctor's office. The other half was managed by Brittany. She had a team of 3 that did the work of 6. The company got bought and a new owner came in. He was like Danny DeVito in gold chains and a bad toupee. He was dumb and no one respected him. He screamed constantly about little things at anyone. He micromanaged and didn't bother to understand someone's job before telling them how to do it better. He tried to streamline processes without knowing how they actually worked. But mostly, he just yelled. One day, the hardest working person in the entire clinic, a nurse who started every appointment, was a few minutes late. She was a single mother and her kids were sick, so she showed up less than 10 minutes later than usual. Danny proceeded to berate the nurse in front of the entire office, screaming about dumb things like being a few minutes late, then strange things like how she wrote dates, and absurd things like how her bedside manner sucked. She had gotten flowers the day before from a patient because she was so kind. When the nurse put in her notice at the end of the day, Danny fired her on the spot, told her to leave and never come back. I had been job searching and actually gotten an offer. I was planning on giving a lot of notice, but couldn't give notice if I'd be fired immediately. I had student loans and was paycheck to paycheck. I grabbed the 2 remaining members of the admin staff and explained that I was going to quit without notice before too long. Brittany understood and says she too was in the final stages of taking a new job. We agreed that we would quietly all find new jobs, then duck out when it was convenient. We had to quietly let all the other staff know, and each of us quietly started smuggling our personal effects out of the office. I had a start date 2 weeks out, but honestly couldn't give notice without risking my financial health. A week or so later, Danny started screaming about the color of tape I'd used to duct tape down a power cable months before. I had used orange and yellow to make it more visible, but Danny said that was unprofessional. I asked him how he'd like me to fix it.
Well, that's not my problem, that's yours.
I paused for a second and said, "You know, I don't think it is my problem. I'm out." I grabbed my small box of desk things as Danny howled at me.
You will never find another job in this town. I own every doctor's office in this county. I don't need you. I've got Brittany.
Brittany looked at him and said, "I'd been meaning to tell you this. Today is my last day." We packed our things and walked out, as Danny called the cops saying his employees were stealing things like their own birthday cards and pictures of their kids. We texted the 3rd employee who was on lunch and explained what happened. It sounds like she didn't go back either, and without front desk, billing, or nursing staffs, a doctor's office simply can't run. I'm told they were closed for almost 2 weeks before they got temporary employees, but had no one to train them. Danny shuttered and resold the business a few months later to the big dog in the industry, which is a charity. Since their books are open, we saw that they bought the company, really just the clients list, for about 15% less than what Danny had paid a few months prior. TLDR, new owner tries to micromanage, fires employees on the spot, rest of staff fires him on the spot, and he loses millions. Edit. A bit more information. The police did show up, and one of the officers who responded was a patient we had treated for months. Weeks later, Danny tried to withhold our final paychecks, claiming that we forfeited wages if we didn't give notice, illegal, and that we had stolen valuable intellectual property. He meant to get passwords. He didn't know anyone's user IDs or passwords, so he had to pay an external IT team to get all of our files. And with that, my friends, we've reached the end of today's Epic Tales of Revenge. If you liked them, be sure to leave a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed to stay up to date on all the latest and the greatest. My name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, telling you as always that I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.